There are things a man says when he is in love, not with his mind, but with his soul, and yet they rarely sound like poetry. They rarely echo the loud declarations people expect. In fact, they're often missed, dismissed, or misread, because they arise not from performance, but from the unconscious, from the realm where the heart speaks without needing to impress. A man in love speaks a different dialect, one that carries weight beneath the words. A woman rooted in herself will feel it, not just hear it. She won't need to ask, "Does he love me?" She'll already know. But for those still learning to trust the subtle, here are 7 phrases that he says only when he loves a woman madly, soul deep, and often without realizing he's revealing himself completely. Love, when it is real and rooted in the soul, rarely announces itself in grand, theatrical gestures. Instead, it reveals itself in the small, almost invisible moments that carry deep emotional weight. The unconscious mind, where the true language of love lives, speaks not in the loud declarations that culture often celebrates, but in quiet acts of presence, care, and consistency. A man who loves deeply may not always know how to articulate his feelings with poetic precision, but his energy speaks in ways that words cannot. He will speak not just to be heard, but to ensure she feels safe, seen, and valued in ways that bypass the rational and go straight to the soul. The subtle ways in which love appears can often be dismissed by the conscious mind because they do not fit the script of romantic idealism. We have been conditioned to look for the flowers, the promises, the social media-worthy gestures, but true love hides in the mundane, in the way he watches her when she's not looking, in the way he notices when something's off even before she speaks, in the quiet texts that say, "Did you eat?" or "Let me know you got home safe." These are not random or robotic. They are unconscious threads of care that hold emotional gravity. They say, "You live in my awareness, even when I'm not with you." A man in love may not say, "I love you," as often as she might wish, but he says it through his actions, his consistency, his emotional attunement. He remembers the things she forgets about herself. He adjusts to her energy without needing to be asked. He chooses to show up even when it's inconvenient. This is not performative love. It is integrated love. It has moved beyond ego. It is no longer about impressing or winning her. It is about weaving her into his inner world, where she lives not as an object of desire, but as a mirror of his own soul. The subtlety of this love lies in its embodiment. It is not always vocalized. It is felt. It is the shift in tone when she's upset, the pause in conversation that makes room for her silence, the way he reaches for her hand in a crowd. These are not rehearsed behaviors. They emerge from a place within him that recognizes her not as a temporary thrill, but as a permanent imprint. When a man is in love, he becomes protective not out of fear, but out of reverence. He begins to operate with emotional intelligence, not because he read it in a book, but because her presence activates a deeper, more conscious version of himself. Subtle love does not seek an audience. It exists even when no one is watching. That is what makes it sacred. It is not a performance. It is a quiet remembering, over and over again, that she matters beyond utility, beyond attraction, beyond surface. It is in the small phrases he says without thinking and the gentle ways he stays without asking. The unconscious does not speak in speeches or declarations. It speaks in symbols, patterns, and subtle cues that often pass unnoticed by the logical mind. In relationships, especially those where love runs deep, the unconscious expresses itself not in grand romantic gestures, but in the quiet folds of everyday conversation. A man who is deeply in love may not know how to articulate the depths of his emotions directly, but his psyche communicates through small, ordinary phrases that carry extraordinary emotional weight. These phrases, though seemingly casual, reveal the inner landscape of his feelings, offering glimpses into the soul-level connection he feels with the woman he loves. When a man says something as simple as, "Let me know when you get home," it might register on the surface as routine courtesy. But if viewed through the lens of depth psychology, this phrase becomes a symbolic gesture of psychic connection. It is not merely about safety, it is about emotional tethering. His unconscious is expressing that her well-being directly affects his state of mind. She is no longer separate from him in the emotional field. Her presence or absence has a visceral impact on his internal equilibrium. He may not fully understand this himself, but the care embedded in his words reveals the bond. Similarly, when he says, "I was thinking about you earlier," it may seem like idle conversation. But underneath, this is a revelation of the way she inhabits his internal world. She has crossed the boundary of physical presence and entered the realm of psychic residence. She lives in his thoughts not as an obligation or distraction, but as a quiet, constant echo. This is not about obsession, it is about emotional integration. She is a part of his private dialogue with life, and when he says this aloud, he is unconsciously offering her access to that sacred space. Phrases like, "You don't have to explain, I get it," or "Tell me what you need," may seem simple, but they are signals of a deep psychological shift. The masculine ego often seeks control through understanding, logic, and solutions. But in these moments, when he silences that instinct and simply receives her reality, he is allowing his unconscious to lead. He is stepping into emotional presence without resistance, an act that only happens when love is real and his guard is down. It shows a willingness to merge, to feel, and to be shaped by her experience. Language, when viewed through the unconscious, is never just about words. It is the carrier of energy, of unspoken truths, of hidden desires and ancient instincts. The man in love does not always say, "I love you," in the ways the world teaches, but he says it in how he lingers in conversation, how he listens without judgment, how he makes space for her emotional weather without needing to change it. These everyday phrases are like smoke rising from a hidden fire, the evidence of something powerful burning within, even if it's never directly named. When masculine energy matures into love, it no longer seeks to dominate, fix, or possess. It seeks to merge, to understand, and to witness. True masculine love, grounded in the unconscious, is not rooted in control, but in communion. It begins when a man stops needing to shape a woman into something manageable and starts holding space for her as she is. His love becomes less about outcome and more about presence. He no longer measures connection by obedience or validation, but by emotional depth, safety, and resonance. In the earlier stages of development, masculine energy often feels threatened by the unpredictable emotional world of the feminine. It wants clarity, logic, and control. It fears what it cannot define. But when a man falls deeply in love, when his unconscious begins to awaken, he does not try to contain her storm. Instead, he learns to stand inside it with reverence. He listens not to respond, but to feel. He allows her full expression without demanding it be linear or calm. Her emotional waves are no longer disruptions to his peace. They are invitations into his own depth. This is communion, the shared sacred space where two inner worlds meet without dominance. In that space, a man in love does not offer advice when she cries. He does not interrupt her silence with solutions. He leans in. He softens. He stays. This is a man who no longer needs to be right, to be praised, or to be in charge. His love has evolved beyond performance. He now loves with his nervous system, not just his words. His energy tells her, "You are safe to be everything here." That is the highest form of masculine containment. This shift is not performative. It is instinctual. He no longer seeks power over her because he has found power within himself. He no longer fears her chaos because he has met his own. He doesn't need her to be small or agreeable to feel strong. In fact, he is drawn to the fullness of her aliveness. Her depth awakens something ancestral in him. He sees in her the mirror of what he long abandoned in himself, the raw, unfiltered, intuitive part of his soul, and in loving her, he reclaims it. When he says things like, "Tell me what you need," or "I want to understand you," he isn't just being polite. He is laying down the weapons of patriarchy and picking up the tools of soul union. He is no longer asking her to change to fit his world. He is changing to meet hers, not because he is weak, but because he is strong enough to surrender. This is not submission, it is expansion. Communion requires the death of ego, and a man in love willingly undergoes that death again and again to remain emotionally available to the woman he loves. He recognizes that love is not about possession, it is about participation, not management, but mutual transformation. True commitment does not begin with words. It begins with energy. It is not rooted in the phrases one rehearses or the promises made in moments of comfort. Rather, it reveals itself in the silent frequency that a man carries around the woman he loves. Anyone can say the right thing. Words are easy to copy, repeat, and display, but energy does not lie. It is the quiet, invisible thread that weaves presence into permanence, even when nothing is being said. When a man is truly committed, his energy tells her long before his mouth does. It is the way he orients himself around her emotions, the way his presence remains steady even in moments of tension, and the way he shows up, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. Verbal commitment is often confused with emotional availability. A man can say he loves her, that he's here to stay, that she matters. But if his energy is inconsistent, if he shuts down when things get hard, if he disappears when she is vulnerable, if he withholds affection when she doesn't perform the way he likes, then the words become hollow. Real commitment is felt in the body, in the regulation of the nervous system. It is felt when she breaks down and he doesn't flinch, when she goes silent and he doesn't panic or project, when she grows and he doesn't retreat, but expands alongside her. This is energetic commitment. It is the anchoring presence that doesn't ask her to shrink in order to feel secure. There is a specific peace that descends upon a woman when she feels this kind of commitment, not because she hears it, but because she no longer has to doubt it. She doesn't need to chase or decode his behavior. His steadiness speaks louder than any vow. His consistency replaces the need for reassurance. His emotional reliability makes her soft, not because she's trying to please him, but because she can finally exhale. Her feminine energy opens when his masculine presence is rooted, not in performance, but in grounded being. This kind of commitment cannot be faked. It is forged through inner work, self-confrontation, and a willingness to hold space, not just for her light, but also for her storm. He must have met his own chaos in order to stand calmly in hers. He must know how to remain when his own patterns scream to run. That is what makes energetic commitment sacred. It requires personal transformation. A man cannot love a woman consistently if he is still avoiding parts of himself. His commitment to her is only as deep as his commitment to his own healing. This is why true commitment is not about possession, nor does it rely on constant declarations. It is not about controlling the future or securing her loyalty through fear or reward. It is about creating a space so safe, so consistent, and so rooted in presence that she never has to question where she stands in his life. His actions align with his energy aligns with his values. and his values, though never shouted, are lived in every silent moment he chooses to stay. In the end, love that is real speaks in frequencies, not just in phrases. The man who loves madly does not always announce his devotion with grand performances. Instead, his love flows through the subtle, unconscious language of presence, safety, and deep emotional attunement. His words may be ordinary, but they carry the extraordinary weight of his energy. Where the immature masculine seeks validation and control, the awakened masculine offers communion, consistency, and reverence. True commitment is never about possession. It is about the energetic sanctuary he creates through the way he shows up, listens, and stays. In that sacred space, the woman he loves does not need to question, chase, or decode. She simply feels what is true, that she is held, not just in his words, but in his being.